Hey everybody, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video I'm going to be covering guilt. Before I get into it, please make sure that you like this video, drop a comment if you resonated with anything, and subscribe to this channel. Really appreciate your support, and looking forward to sharing more content with you all that can be helpful for you all on your healing and self-development journey. So let's get into it. Now, guilt is a very misunderstood emotion, and the reasons why is because it can be quite uncomfortable to sit in and process and move through. So my intention with this video is that just by covering different reasons why we experience it, hopefully you can better understand why you are feeling it, therefore empowering you with more awareness and understanding to be able to move through it, process it, act upon it, or dissolve it if it's not serving you in that moment. So I'm going to go through a few different points as to why we feel guilt. That's going to give you a bit more of a holistic view on why we experience this emotion. Number one reason why we can feel guilt is because we are taking too much. Now, our relationships, ranging from our social, friendship groups, or even business relationships, are all bonded between each other with two different emotions. One is guilt and one is anger. Now, we feel anger if someone is taking too much from us. So if it's in a business setting, if your business partner is taking more of a percentage of the profits from you, you're probably going to feel angry. If you're in a romantic relationship and you're giving so much to your partner and you're cleaning the house a lot, you're paying for the rent, and you're doing a lot, but your partner isn't giving you much back, you're going to feel angry. And what the other end of that is that we feel guilty if we are taking too much. So let's say you're in a romantic relationship and your partner's doing so much for you, and you may start to feel a bit of guilt coming up, and it's not a bad thing. That guilt may actually motivate you to go and give them something, like tonight I'm going to give you a massage, or like an act of service, or I'm going to give them a gift, or I'm going to take you out to dinner tonight, or I'm going to do the cleaning tonight. And what this does is it serves as a way to maintain a balance of energy, of giving and receiving within the relationship. Okay, so that's one of the reasons why we can feel guilt. We can feel guilt when we are taking too much, and it's there to serve as a form of motivation for us to give back. So a lot of people pay their guilt. Let's say if they become billionaires and they make so much money, a way that they can give back for all of this that they have taken is going to charities and feeding the poor and giving back in these sort of ways, for the environment, or all these different things. So there's different ways that we can give back and pay for our guilt, and it's really important that we do, because if we don't, well then, hey, you're probably just going to be a complete psychopath that just takes from everyone and doesn't give back in return. So to maintain healthy relationships, we got to pay for our guilt. We got to tune into that guilt, understand what it's trying to tell us, and then give back if we are taking too much. The next reason why we feel guilt, and this would be the most common understanding that a lot of people may have behind it, is it serves as a way for us to understand what our moral compass is, letting us know when we have done something wrong. Now, I'm going to get into how we can feel like we've done something wrong when objectively we haven't done anything wrong. That's for another future point. But ultimately, we need to have a strong sense of what's right and wrong for us and how that influences the collective. And if we step outside of what we believe is right for ourselves and the collective, well then we are going to feel guilt. And what that guilt is there to do is to give us a sense of discomfort, so that we don't just go up to a random person on the street and steal money from them, physically abuse them, or do something that is pretty objectively understandable to perceive as wrong. And for a lot of people out there, like, there's nothing wrong or right, everything is just is. And I understand that, but I believe, or I'm a firm believer in, we need to have a strong sense of what's right and wrong for us, and therefore that builds our moral compass. And when we step out of that moral compass, we feel guilt. So that's another reason why we can feel guilt. There's actually some cultures within the world that don't feel guilty when they do something that, within our, culture that's more globalized, we're like, what? How can you not feel guilty when you do something like that? There's actually I think it's a herding culture within some part of Sudan, and it's actually encouraged within their culture to go and steal other people's cows, and that's because it's been going on for a long period of time, and it's enabled these peoples within these areas to survive. It's like an eye for an eye. You take my cow, I'll take your cow, and it's been going on for a long period of time. So whenever the act of stealing has occurred, it's actually been praised by the members of their family. So what's actually happened is some people within this culture have moved to other countries, and they have started stealing things. And could just be like something that we honor ancestrally, that we continue to pay forward because our ancestors did it before us. It can be something that we're doing unconsciously, but these people just weren't feeling guilty for that, because from their conditioning, it's been the right thing to do. So that's just a random example. The next reason why we can feel guilt as well is when we decide to expand on what we want to be calling in and receiving. So an example of this is if you're at a stage in your life where you're ready to take more out of life, you're ready to experience more out of life. You're ready to experience more love, more joy, more financial success, more abundance. What can happen in order for us to experience that is that we can actually feel an element of guilt, but it's like, maybe I shouldn't take more money or have more abundance. Like maybe I should just be happy for what I have, or my friends, they don't have much. Like you may start to feel a little bit guilty for calling this in. So that's a very normal feeling that we can have, and it's in fact encouraged that we face that guilt and move through that guilt. Because what happens for a lot of people, they may logically in their mind say, yeah, I want more success and things like that, but they can't deal with the guilt that they feel for it. So they revert back to their, the comfortable position they're in with, having whatever, wage they perceive as, humble and, not too much, right? So it's really important that we, face that guilt and move through that guilt. So that's another reason why we can feel guilt when we start to call in more. Another form of guilt that we can feel is during the stages of grief. I'm going to make a completely different video which talks about grief. And this would be the guilt that we feel during the stage of grief, where we're essentially reflecting back on the relationship or the breakup and analyzing all the areas in which we feel like we have done wrong and done bad, and we feel guilty about that. It's like, if I didn't do that, then we would still be together in this loving, harmonious relationship. During the guilt that we can feel there, it could either be based on past conditioning that's influencing that guilt, or it could be there for perfectly valid reasons because, hey, you may have fucked up a bit in that last relationship, and that guilt is there to give you a lesson, so that that lesson that you take from it, you can take forward into your next relationship, or just with your relationship with yourself and how you live your life. And the last reason why we can feel guilt, and this is, I'd say, apart from the other ones, which is more about accepting that these are normal human feelings to have in these normal human experiences, and it should be, embraced. This guilt should be embraced and understood and in fact used as a way to drive us forward to do good things. This next point, it's going to be more based upon the guilt that we can feel because of the religious, societal, family, cultural type of conditioning that we may have received in our mainly early developmental years, that has taught us that certain things about us or what we do is wrong and bad. Okay, and I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you were judged anytime you said no. It was more valuable for you to be a good boy or a good girl and have that nice nice guy or nice girl programming. And anytime you said no, you were actually judged, love was withheld from you, and therefore as a way for you to be accepted and loved, especially in these early developmental years when you're incredibly vulnerable, you can train yourself to feel guilty for saying no and like upsetting others, even if it's actually in your best interests and what serves you best to say no in that moment, whether it's like setting a boundary or not doing something that you don't want to do. So what can happen is if we are trained in those early developmental years to perceive certain aspects of ourselves or certain things that we want to do as wrong and bad, we can continue to run that same programming throughout life, and therefore we trigger this like unconscious sense of guilt for saying no and, you know, disrupting the peace and just setting a boundary, taking time out for ourselves, doing what we want to do. And we can call this guilt conditioning. It's like we're trained and we to take on this guilt, and we take on these belief systems from outside of us that are a bit outdated, that don't serve us anymore, and we feel this unnecessary guilt now that doesn't serve us, and it actually takes us away from following our own destiny and living a life of empowerment. And that can take shape in so many different ways. You know, I'll throw out a couple of random examples that come to mind now. It's like, as a woman, if you grew up in a society and culture where it was very hypersexualized, and you believe that your worth as a woman was based on your ability to please men sexually, based on what you saw and what you heard around you. You can feel guilty if you haven't slept with some guy that you just went on a date with. It can just be like a guilt that you feel for that. So it's really important to discern what type of guilt that you are feeling, so that you can either use it to empower you or dissolve any unnecessary conditioning that you're still holding onto and is burdening you. So guilt often gets suppressed and rejected, not only just by your everyday Joe, but even by members of the spiritual community for being low vibe. And I would disagree. I think that guilt exists for a reason. Nothing in this universe doesn't exist without a reason. And I think if we have a good relationship with our guilt and we can integrate that emotion in our day-to-day lives, we can use it for good things, and or we can understand that it's being triggered and released in a context that doesn't serve us, so then we can give ourselves the support or the understanding to be able to move through it without perceiving that feeling as a concrete fact. Now, I hope you enjoyed this video today. If you liked it, please comment what you liked about it. Please subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be sharing a lot more other videos that's going to be going through the ins and outs of spirituality, emotions, healing, you name it, all these things that are a part of us becoming better versions of ourselves and connecting deeper to who we truly are. This is what I'm passionate about, and I love sharing it as well. Now, if you're interested in learning more about shadow work, then I'm offering a free 20-minute consultation. This call is for you if you're serious about getting some support on your journey right now. You're kind of sick and tired of using certain methods that just aren't serving you right now, or they've enabled you to get to a certain point in your journey, but you feel like shadow work could really bring you forward as you go through this next stage, or you've just sick and tired of trying to do this by yourself and you want to get some support from someone like me. You resonate with me and my message, and you're ready to see what options there are for you. So yeah, please book in a call with me. You can find a link below where you can do that. And I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas for a few days ago, and also a Happy New Year that's coming up. Really powerful time of reflection, and wishing you all the best to continue on this journey and continue to grow and evolve. And so anyway, peace, love to all of you. Until next time, take care.